be a title race against Liverpool.
I think if Liverpool can win at the weekend, it's massive. It's absolutely monumentous.
The only thing that separates Pep from Fergie now is time.
Is it just me who thinks the Invincibles thing's a little bit overrated?
No, I'm so glad you said that. The conversation starts and ends with Phil Foden, and that's it. That's fair. Always, you say his name, and that's what you got to say. Yeah.
After a 3-1 win for Manchester City in the derby and a late controversial winner for Liverpool in Nottingham, the top two in the Premier League meet this weekend at Anfield. To discuss all of the goings-on ahead of the game, I'm joined by Steve from RedmenTV and Ollie from City Report Pod, and we're going to go through everything, including some quite controversial rankings. So 2 wins from the weekend for Manchester City and Liverpool in slightly different circumstances. Steve, were you supporting Manchester United a little this weekend? A little cheer when Rashford scored, perhaps?
Yeah, a little bit, which is horrendous. But I never expected Manchester United to get anything out of Manchester City, so I wasn't really expecting too much from it. But of course, anytime City drop points, there's going to be an absolute bonus between now and the end of the season. We're in a slightly different place than usual, where we're not the chasers at the moment. We're being chased because we've always had to rely on somebody else doing us a favour. In the last couple of title run-ins, and that's never really worked out for us. So it is slightly different in that regard, that it didn't feel as big. But yes, I'd be lying if I didn't say that I wanted City to drop points, but I never really felt that was going to happen.
Nolly, what did you make of the Derby Day win? 3-1 in the end, but probably wasn't that comfortable, was it?
No, it wasn't comfortable in the end, and I mean, I can't believe how they turned up to play in a derby. I understand there is a massive gap between the two sides in terms of quality, in terms of squad, but to go to your local rivals and play and set up like they did I just thought it was shocking, to be honest. But yeah, it wasn't comfortable. Obviously, Rashford's goal, not much you can do about that. And then it was just attack versus defence. And when it kind of got in towards the early stages of the second half, it was, everyone in the stands was a little bit shifty and wondering, are we going to find the goal? But yeah, Foden, unbelievable, stepped up.
It was, sorry, I thought you were going to continue.
The conversation starts and ends with Phil Foden, and that's it. That's fair. Always, you say his name, and that's what you got to say. Yeah.
I do want to touch on Man City's unbelievable run of form. Obviously, they haven't lost, I don't think, in any competition since 6th of December. 17 wins, 2 draws since then in all competitions. But there doesn't seem to be too much talk of repeating the treble. Can we start that talk now?
No. And I wasn't talking about the treble until we were quite literally playing the FA Cup and Champions League finals. It's just, you've seen it yourself with Liverpool a couple of years back when there was all this quadruple talk started very, very early, and anything can go wrong, anything can happen. Final day of the Premier League, obviously, about them few guys, and then the Champions League final. It's such an unbelievable achievement, considering it's now only been done twice, that to even talk about it before the 88th minute of the final of the Champions League is presumptuous. But I mean, to do 2 in a row as well seems incredibly unlikely. But almost to mirror what Pep says, I think he was asked about the Liverpool game after the game yesterday, and he said Copenhagen. That's what I'm focused on, and that, I think, even as fans, that's what we've got to do. Just kind of go week by week, and if in May we still find ourselves with Liverpool and Arsenal at the top of the league, in the FA Cup final and in the Champions League final, maybe then you'll get a word out of me about the treble, but nothing till then.
And still Liverpool's own quadruple of sorts, obviously Europa League instead of the Champions League, still on track. First trophy in the bag. How are you feeling about your hopes in each of the competitions you're left in?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are big favourites for the Europa League. It'll just depend, obviously, again, things, draws and whatever go your way. But I think Liverpool should be relatively safe. They should at least be in the semi-finals and probably the final of that competition. The FA Cup, we've got United away. Who knows what that'll be and stuff as well. But yeah, the main one, obviously, with the League Cup in the bag, the Premier League it has to be the priority now, and we'll see how Jurgen changes his squad up and rotates. He's dealing with a lot of injuries, so that might impact things as well on what he prioritises. Like Liverpool play Thursday and then they play City at the weekend. I imagine he might go half a week against Prague with an eye on the City game. So things like that are have to be factored in. But yeah, for us to be in this position now, what we're in, considering where we were 12 months ago, the turnaround's been absolutely massive. City are continuing what City did for the last couple of seasons, really. Liverpool have gone to the very, very high up, and then they fell really, really low down. And to get back to where they are now again in a space of a year, I am surprised that we're here. You know, I thought this season might have been, yeah, you might win a domestic cup, of course, because that's always on the cards. But, you know, I thought we'd be more similar to what Spurs and Aston Villa are doing, where you're battling for that fourth position, and maybe third, depending on obviously how United and others got on. But for us to find ourselves top of the league now has been a welcome bonus, because it wasn't to be expected. But yeah, credit to the manager, credit to the players. They've been brilliant so far.
And I want to touch on Europe because we've got a couple of European games coming in this midweek for Man City and Liverpool, obviously both pretty strong favourites in both competitions. If you're throwing it forward to a prospective final, have you got an idea of who you might want to play or who you definitely don't want to play? I mean, with the Liverpool in the Europa League, we might be looking at Bayer Leverkusen.
Yeah, to be honest, they're the only ones who I think are similar at the moment in terms of Liverpool's level. Obviously, they're flying in Germany. There's a couple of other good teams in it, but I wouldn't say I really fear anybody. But it depends on the draw, doesn't it? But they are the two best teams by far, really, Liverpool and Leverkusen in that competition. So if someone else could knock them out, that'd be fine. But yeah, it's weird because we're a Champions League level team playing in the Europa League. Like we are better than everybody in that competition. That's just the way it is. If you look at the coefficient points, it's stupid. Like Liverpool are miles out ahead of it. They just found themselves here because of a poor season last season. So no, that doesn't really impact me. But like I say, I think Leverkusen are the biggest threats to Liverpool winning the Europa League.
And for City, potentially an all-English final this time around. What do you fancy?
I definitely don't want an all-English final. I think it kind of takes away from the occasion a little bit when it's two domestic sides. I don't say that out of PTSD for what happened against Chelsea a few years ago in Porto.
It can go well as well. We've been there.
Yeah.
It goes all right.
Yeah, well, if you get Spurs.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
My preference would be Real Madrid for a couple of reasons. Firstly, the tie against Real Madrid last season was unbelievable. We had a hard fought. I think it was 1-1 away from home, and then they came to the Etihad, and it was the best live performance I've ever seen from any team when I've been in the ground, and also the romanticism of it. Right, I think a Champions League final for an English club against Real Madrid is really as good as it gets.
He's got PTSD.
Yeah, maybe not for you. And they might be the toughest team left in the competition. Certainly one of the hardest to go up against in a final, given their heritage. I hate that word, but their heritage in the competition. And like I said, it's romantic to face what is probably, well, certainly the biggest club on the continent in a Champions League final. Would be, yeah, it'd be nice. I'd quite fancy that.
Back to domestic matters, of course. There's a little game of football going on this weekend, Super Sunday at Anfield, Liverpool v Man City. Both of you heading into this one in fairly good form, but I'll start with you, Ollie. Does the winner of this match win the title?
No. Not as in they won't.
But it doesn't decide it.
No, it doesn't decide it. And partly as well because there's another variable here this season, that's Arsenal, which I didn't expect. To be honest, and it might sound, maybe it was arrogant, maybe it was the riding the high off the treble, but I didn't think City would have a real competitor this season. You said yourself you're quite surprised to find Liverpool where you are. Arsenal, I thought last season they were maybe riding the luck at times. They were pulling results out that were better than their performances would suggest. So this season, I didn't really fancy any competition for City, but it's gone the other way. We're now looking at the first real three-horse race in quite a few years. It's been a while since it's looked like three teams will go down to the wire. So no, there's going to be a long way to go. I think if Liverpool win, they are more likely to be certain of a title than if we win. Purely because I think it puts them 4 points ahead in all, would be a massive knock to our momentum. And I just think it'll give them a launch pad. Whereas for us, even if we beat Liverpool, I think we've got a longer way to go than they do, especially with games against Arsenal coming up, Villa coming up. We've got a much harder run in after that than Liverpool do. So, but I certainly wouldn't call the title race based on this result.
Yeah. It's massive if Liverpool win, because having that 2-game cushion on City would be huge. That would be absolutely massive for us. We can afford to slip up everywhere. Liverpool have been really, really hit with injuries recently, and they've had to pull a few rabbits out the hats very late on, not least at the weekend, of course. So if they can get that little buffer from Manchester City, and of course they've already got one from Arsenal, I think that it could be absolutely massive. I've always said, like, no one's just going to go unbeaten throughout the rest of the season, and then they do. But Arsenal are the variable. City do have to play Arsenal as well, so you can't discount them. But I think one of these two teams will win the league, if I'm honest. I think they'll be first and second. I think if Liverpool can win at the weekend, it's massive. It's absolutely monumentous, because very, very rarely when Liverpool have been in these title races with Manchester City, they've been the one chasing and hoping City slip up. Now you've got yourself a buffer and you can slip up once as well. That's huge. You know, Liverpool don't look too often like they're going to drop points in 2 games, and that's what they'd have to do. So it's an absolutely monumental game for Liverpool, monumental game for Jurgen Klopp, because that 4-point gap is absolutely critical, because I'm not sure if we can go and win every single game between now and the end of the season. It's really, really tough, of course. I don't think City can either, if I'm honest, given the fixtures and as well. So, yeah, that 4-point gap could be massive. So I actually think it goes a long way to deciding it. But like I say, Arsenal are the variable at this moment in time. They haven't gone anywhere. They're still just about on the coattails, so that you've got to include them. But I do think the winner of this tie are the firm favourites for the league title.
You've both given Arsenal quite a lot of credit there. I thought you might be a bit more bullish in the fact that you've been there, you've got the experience, you've been in these title run-ins together, we've seen record points totals, all of that sort of stuff. But there is a feeling that Arsenal are coming almost, aren't they?
Yeah, you're right. I think the credit, what has really impressed me about Arsenal, a lot of the time we see teams that perhaps enter a title race like last season, like Arsenal did, and maybe, as I said, riding the luck up a little bit, getting the rub of the green, maybe doing a little bit better than the stats would suggest and the numbers would suggest, but they've come back. They've come back to be here again this season, and that for me is unbelievable. They are now on the way to establishing themselves as a regular title challenger, as aside from having one great season and then maybe dropping off, maybe not strengthening as much as they could have done. But they're here again. I think they deserve credit for that. And their run of form recently, their run of goal scoring as well has been incredible. I can't remember the last time at this stage of the season City weren't by far and ahead the goal difference leaders. I think Arsenal and Liverpool are above us at the moment. Maybe not after yesterday, but obviously Arsenal still to play. So I think they deserve a lot of credit. They're there, and for Arteta to keep that consistency from last season, yeah, they deserve the shot.
I thought they'd have fallen away by now. I think last time I was on, I was saying I do think that's probably going to happen. Actually, they've probably been better. They've probably been the form team in the country. Actually, I know City have won a lot of games. I think Arsenal have looked better in winning some of their games than City have. So you have to give them credit. Like you say, it's what did they learn anything from last year, and what is there anything they can take from it into this year? Because last year it was them and City. Now it's Liverpool and City. So they have to overtake 2 juggernaut teams, and that's tough on them. But yeah, it would be very, very disrespectful to write them off now, just because they deserve to be in the conversation. Until I do think obviously the league table suggests they are third in that race, but the way that they have turned from, I thought last year, very emotional side, and it was all a little bit chaotic. Now they look like the stone cold killers that Liverpool and City have been in the past, so they deserve the credit. But they're just screaming for a draw on Sunday. Arsenal fans, they've got the half and half scarves out. A little 1-1, a little 0-0 for them. That's what they're screaming for, and then they are right back in it if they can get that. But that's what I'm saying. I think if someone wins this game, that's a huge win for either of them. If it's a draw, then again Arsenal are right back in the mix.
A win for Arsenal if it's a draw. I want to touch on Man City's defensive record. 3 clean sheets in the last 9 in all competitions. It's not been perfect. We've also seen in games against Chelsea and even the Man United game that it looks like you can get out the City defence a little bit. Do you think there's a bit of defensive fragility there?
There is. There's certainly more than last season. Like last season, what underpinned that season was the fact that we were going mad up top, obviously with Haaland with his goal records, and at the back when we needed to shut up shop and grind it out. There were some defensive masterclasses in there, especially John Stones, Ruben Dias last season, phenomenal. Kyle Walker against Real Madrid, phenomenal. We had that ability to do the job at both ends. This season, despite our run of form recently, we haven't been as effective up top or at the back. And that has compounded into some very, very tight games that we didn't want to be tight. We are struggling at times with balls, especially yesterday, balls over the top. I don't think that's Ruben Dias' strength, especially. Dealing with those long balls, dealing with the through balls, that's where Kyle Walker has to sweep up after him. Ruben Dias' strength is standing up to his man and not being beaten, making the late blocks, etc. So we have, but nobody would be talking about the defensive fragilities if we were scoring as much as we usually do. which is why I say these two issues are kind of compounded together and got people talking and giving us some squeaky bum time.
Even in the FA Cup win over Luton, though, where you blew them away, it looked like they did kind of, come back into it and create opportunities and that sort of thing. So it does feel like it might be something that Liverpool can take advantage of.
Absolutely, 100%. What we're brilliant at, we create chances and shots. We have more shots than anyone. Pretty much our numbers in terms of front of goal that we get, attempts are absolutely off the chart. So it is something that you definitely take advantage of, and hopefully you can take advantage of. I think with City, I think they give the ball away too easy, more in the final 2/3, and exposes those defenders. They weren't really doing that. I think Gundogan leaving's been a huge miss on that regard. Like, you feel like you can counter-attack on Manchester City. You can get up the pitch, just because those big spaces that they leave, and Rodri pushes right up, usually they would just jam you in. It feels like they're not as effective in those moments, and then teams can counter, and I think Liverpool are set up to do that. We beat Manchester City at home last year with one counter-attack goal. It was a straight kick from the goalkeeper. We scored this year. Trent gets involved again in a bit of a half counter-attack. So that is definitely something I think Liverpool have their eye on. If you can take the ball off City and get it up the pitch quickly, then they do look like you can get more chances against them. Teams are scoring more goals against them. It's brilliant that they've conceded in the last 8 games or whatever and managed to turn it around or something. But teams are scoring that first goal. So I agree. I think City are a little bit more vulnerable than perhaps they are. They're still fantastic, don't get me wrong, and they could win everything because they've got so much quality, but it feels like that is a little chink in the armour that probably wasn't there last season, where I do feel like they are conceding more goals.
And on that, so Ollie, are you kind of satisfied with the left-back position? Because I saw Ake against Manchester United. He didn't have his best game. Vardiol's been kind of filling in that role. Are you happy with either of those options, especially when you're coming up potentially against Mo Salah at the weekend?
I think it's all dependent on what we need on a game-by-game basis. The main problem at left-back at the moment is that we don't have much variability in style. Tactically, Zinchenko gave us a much more attacking option, running up the left and overlapping Jack Grealish. Cancelo was a completely different proposition entirely. Obviously, he was capable of moving from that left-back position into central midfield, whereas Ake and Gvardiol's good on the ball, don't get me wrong, and sometimes he does go storming up the pitch, but those two they're centre halves effectively, right? They're not your Zinchenko, they're not your Cancelo, they're not your Robertson. They are more limited in what they can do. But to compensate for that, we have John Stones stepping up into midfield. We do have Walker getting up the pitch. So I don't want to point out either of them as a problem in and of themselves. I just think it's that we don't really have the options that we've had in the past. But that said, I was impressed with Ake going forward yesterday. Certainly, he was getting involved in the build-up play more than he usually does, and I think he was doing quite well. But he's no flying left back, and neither is Gvardiol yet. So
he did well. He did well in the reverse fix. He set the goal up, but Mo Salah's had a few good games against Nathan Ake. He's a couple of times now where he's really caused them problems. To be honest, he's done that against City. Pretty much everyone who's played there. They tried Zinchenko. They tried a few different players out there. I remember
Salah. He never.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. He's Mo Salah. He doesn't need a second invitation, but that is again a potential something that Liverpool look at. Provided Salah can get himself fit, hopefully he can. Then that is something. To be fair, Liverpool have done well against City in general in terms of creating chances and scoring goals. They are very tight games. We always get, very rarely does someone end up with a 0 in these games. Liverpool always look like they can cause problems as well. So it's more, I think those turnovers are key. You do it against City, they can kill you, because that's what happened in the reverse fixture. One slip by the goalkeeper and Haaland's in 3 seconds later and it's 1-0, and vice versa. That's where both teams can hurt you. But I think it's fair to say, I think Liverpool have been better defensively this year than Manchester City, and it's been a long time since you could say that, which hopefully bodes well for going into the weekend.
And this game's obviously going to play a huge part in the title race, as we've already discussed, and these two teams have had title races that have finished with just 1 point in between the two teams. I know you're a bit scarred from both of them, Steve. Do you see another 1 point margin this year, or is, even with Arsenal involved, could be goal difference?
Yeah, look, it's probably too late now for somebody to just run away with it. It feels like that would have already needed to happen by now. Like when City won it with 100 points, or when Liverpool won it in 1920, they'd made, by now it was double digits, and it was pretty much a formality. It was like a procession to the title. I think now that we've got here, I can't see the team losing that many games, or all three teams really losing that many games, where it becomes one where it's 3 games to go and it's pretty much done and dusted. It does feel like it's going to go down to that final day, whether it's one or two challenges to whoever's top of the table. But yeah, we play Wolves at home on the last day of the season, and we've done that a couple of times, and we've been there, done it before, and we know how that's ended out. So hoping for a different outcome here. I would just love to get to that last game where if we win, we win, rather than we have to win and somebody else has to do us a favour, and you're waiting for someone else to try and pull one out the bag or whatever. It'd be nice if we could get to that Wolves game with it in our hands, and like I say, as it stands, it's heading that way because Liverpool are still top of the league for now. So that's my key. But yeah, I believe that we're going to get to that Wolves game and the title's going to be on the line. I do believe that.
Agree with that, Ollie?
I can't believe after everything that City have achieved the last few years, I'm still bearish about this and less optimistic than a Liverpool fan. Honestly, that's the typical City. It never dies, really. I'm not so sure. I definitely don't think Liverpool will drop off in a big way because you're consistent. You've been more consistent than City this season. City have a higher ceiling and are capable of playing at a higher level. My fear is that if City don't come through the next few weeks, Liverpool, Arsenal, Villa in the league, Copenhagen Champions League, Newcastle FA Cup, if we don't come out the back end of this month looking good, with good results to back it, I think we might fall away a little bit. I think we're far more likely to fall away than you are. So I think if City can keep up the pressure and keep collecting the points, it will go to the wire. If City don't, and it's only City that I see not doing so, and maybe Arsenal, then I think if Liverpool are going to win it, there might be a fairly comfortable gap, potentially with 2 or 3 games.
Smooth to my ears if we can get that one. If that last day can just be a farewell to Jürgen when he's already won something, that'd be amazing. It's just that just doesn't. That's not how it goes. It doesn't feel like that's where this story is going. I think that the only saving grace might be, again, looking at City's fixtures. They've got a tough run, and they've got teams who've beaten them this season or done well against them. They've still got to play Spurs as well. I think
we've just not had that consistency in seasons past when we've taken it to the wire against Liverpool. It's because from around January, February, we've won every game, barring maybe 1 or 2, but we've always looked good. And we've just mentioned defensive frailties, not being as clinical as we could be up top. There's only so long you can carry that on for. We have to turn up the dial, otherwise I think we'll drop a point here, a point there, and it will end up that we get to the final day and Liverpool have either already won it or they're 2-3 points ahead by then. So
do City turn up the dial on Sunday? I want to get your score predictions and a bit of a discussion on how you think the game's going to pan out. You're the home side, Steve, so let's start with the Liverpool point of view.
Yeah, it's really difficult. I think we will probably win. Just City's record at Anfield's dreadful. They just don't turn up for some reason. When they do, it's always tight games, but those little fine margins go in your favour. I think Anfield is the one nut that Pep hasn't cracked yet. He's done everything else, and he has, but he hasn't quite figured out how to go to Anfield and win. He's come close on a couple of occasions, but not quite been able to get there. So that is the biggest difference. Usually, I always feel like we always have to go to the Etihad in March and April and try and win, and again, we've not been able to do that. It's always felt like a draw has been a better result for City there than Liverpool having to go and win. I think that plays in our favour. I do think City have to come and beat us. I don't know if Pep will be completely thrilled with a draw. I think he'd probably take it if he was offered it, but I do think that's the difference here. So, yeah, I've got a 2-1 in my head, a tight game. Both teams have got some fantastic players. There's a couple of standouts. I think Foden is the real danger for City for us. He's scored goals against us. He's done well. Haaland kind of is what Haaland is. He's always that. And but he needs someone to make the stuff for him to do it. If Liverpool's aim is to try and stop those creative players, your De Bruyne's and your Fodens, but Foden's the one at the moment who looks like he's the one who can just pull something out, a rabbit out of a hat, a bit of magic. I don't really see that from Haaland at the moment. Don't really see it from Doku, if truth be told. De Bruyne is a magician. He's on a different level and he's still got it, but I'm still not quite sure he's 100%. He just doesn't look there. So I think if Liverpool can try and do a job on Phil Foden, and they've tried in the past and failed, that'll go a long way to determine it. But it goes back to what Ollie said before. I do believe that counter-attack threat and that ball over the top, touch wood, it feels like Liverpool are going to have their striking options, a few of them back with pace. They've been very one-paced recently, and that's been a problem. They've got Nunez back. They're hopefully going to have Mo Salah back as well. So that pace on the break, that's always hurt City at Anfield. We know those not so much turnovers even in our half, more in their own half, Liverpool took the ball and gone. That's always been something Jurgen's got right against City, especially at home. Anfield is going to be rocking. I can tell you now, Anfield is going to be absolutely rocking. And yeah, to be fair, City haven't proven they can deal with that yet. Now, they're brilliant, but until they show they can, then I don't think there's any reason to doubt Liverpool.
Ollie, what's your response to that?
I hate a title race against Liverpool. I hate it.
Anfield as well.
Us coming to Anfield, or when you come to us late in the season, I know people have a lot to say about the Etihad, about the atmosphere, so don't want to hear it. When Liverpool comes to town late in the season at the Etihad, it is a cauldron, and you've struggled to crack it. When City have gone to Anfield, it's a cauldron, we've struggled to crack it. And when I look at the fixture list at the beginning of every season, there are 2 games that I mark down as 0 points. Usually Tottenham Hotspur away, although we have finally cracked that one, and Liverpool away. So it's tough. My prediction is going to be a high-scoring game. Certainly, I think Liverpool have got the tools to hurt us. We are going to see more turnovers, especially with the absence of Grealish and Gundogan, who in seasons past have been our very best players at retaining the ball under pressure. Kind of leaving Rodri in a sense just to do that job on his own, and maybe Foden in the tighter spaces. As we mentioned, Salah. Will he be on the pitch? Is he going to be fit?
Looks like it, yeah.
It's
trending that way.
Nunes, obviously, with his pace. I think Liverpool are going to get plenty of chances. I think Liverpool will score at least a couple of goals. Haaland, I think, is going to be back on it. I hope. I think De Bruyne will have a lot of fun putting the balls in behind Liverpool's high line. Foden's in phenomenal form, but we don't have the tools to keep recycling possession. So I'm going to go end to end, bit of chaos, at least 5 goals. Wow. So I don't know which way to call it, honestly. I'll go either 3-2 City or 3-2 Liverpool. Okay. I don't see a draw because I think there's too much riding on it for both teams to ever settle for a draw at any point in this game.
You've covered both bases there. I quite like that.
I just think high scoring. I think there's going to be a lot of chaos, and I think on the day it's going to come down to how clinical either side is, because I think both of them are going to get a lot of chances.
Right, hopefully we'll get a cracking game on Sunday afternoon, hopefully a high-scoring game as you've both predicted. Now we're going to do something a little bit different because we've got 2 managers here who like to make excuses. I think it's fair to say both of you will admit that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read out some managerial excuses that have been said by either Pep Guardiola or Jurgen Klopp, and all I want you to do is tell me who said them. So we'll start with the first one, which is, when I complain to my players, I say, when you complain, you find excuses. And when you find excuses, you cannot move forward. Excuses are the worst thing in football. Was that Jurgen Klopp or was that Pep Guardiola?
It sounds more Pep to me. He likes his word soup, doesn't he?
Do you know that it's Pep?
I don't know that it's Pep, but just the fact that he will not accept excuses as excuses from his players. It has to be Pep.
It is Pep. Well done, 1 for 1 so far. Next one. The week was crazy. I've experienced a lot of weeks, but that was like we had a witch in the building. Klopp. Sorry, I've really butchered that quote.
Klopp.
That does sound Jurgen. He likes crazy. He says crazy a lot.
Yeah. He likes his wizards and witches apparently as well. Yeah, no, exactly right. Jurgen Klopp there. Next one. Coming to London is like, I don't know, going to Northern Europe. It's so exhausting to come to London.
That's Pep, isn't he? Moaning he had to get the bus.
Is it Pep? Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Pep moaned that he had to get on a bus.
I don't know if that was a bus or a train. It was Pep Guardiola. I think he was moaning that it took 4.5 hours to get from Manchester.
Probably on the bus. Definitely on the bus.
Yeah.
Sounds like a National Express.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Take it up with a megabus, I reckon. Pep. Next one is, you saw that the ball didn't roll really. If you have the ball for 70 to 80% of the time, it makes life really uncomfortable. The only problem is if it stays on the pitch, and that was actually the case.
Klopp.
Yeah, with the long grass.
Long grass,
It feels like he's done that before.
Guys, you know your managers. There's 4 from 4. I thought that was quite a difficult one because he was talking about possession and passing the ball, and you know.
I'm pretty sure. Jurgen's. He's had that a couple of times.
What was the long grass game?
Got away from home and it's been too grassy.
Yeah. I like this one, and I think it might be a bit easy, but I'm going to say it anyway. In the second goal, he just mishit the ball. There's no real reason. Maybe he had cold feet. It sounds funny, but it could be.
Klopp.
It was Klopp after a loss to Manchester City. I can't remember if you remember that City win. Must have been an Alisson kicking error, I presume. I can't remember it.
He's had a few of those.
Hopefully none on Sunday for you, Steve. And the last one of our little quotes game. I am now convinced that God is a Man City fan.
That's got to be Jurgen. Would Pep say that?
think it is Klopp.
It is Klopp, 6 from 6. Well done, guys.
I think that might have been when Vincent Kompany scored from the car park against Leicester. I think that was then. Like, of all the times he's ever done that in his life, I think that was that one. Yeah.
Right, we'll move on to our final section of today's podcast. You both did very well there. I'm very impressed. I've called this section Rank You Very Much because we're going to be doing some ranking. First of all, I'd like you both to pick your best Premier League squad from one season. So it could be City's treble winning squad, 100-point squad, could be Liverpool's Premier League winning squad. Pick your best or favourite squad from the Premier League era.
I think it's easier for me, so I will go Liverpool 1920. One of the most dominating Premier League teams that there's literally ever been.
I think that is easy for you.
Yeah, they'd won the league by Christmas. I think that one's an easy one for me. City's more difficult because they've had a couple of reiterations of Pep's team.
If we're going just Premier League, I'll go the 17-18 Centurions. You said 19-20 Liverpool was one of the most dominant Premier League teams I've ever seen. That was the most dominant Premier League team I've ever seen. 100 points.
It's a joke.
Yeah.
Fair enough, I like that. And I want you now to compare and rank those two squads that you just mentioned with Arsenal's Invincibles, Man United 99, and Mourinho's Chelsea version 1, the one that conceded only 15 goals. So where do you rank those three teams combined with your two that you just suggested?
Oh, it's really tough. Is it just me who thinks the Invincibles thing's a little bit over-egged?
No, I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that.
They were brilliant, don't get me wrong, but they drew lots. Like they won the league with it wasn't that many points. Like
they didn't lose though.
That was true, but like I'd rather have 100 points and lose a couple of games than draw a couple. So I'd probably put them. They might be last on that list for me.
You can work together. You can have your own opinions. Whatever.
No, I'm just so glad you said it. I'm so glad you said that. No, I absolutely agree. I don't think
that might have been Wenger's best title-winning team. Like I don't know. No. It was just.
I think we must be in double figures now of the number of teams that have tallied higher points total than the Invincibles team did. But your trophy's not gold. Like, come on, City. If you watch City and Liverpool, 19-20, City in 17-18, 18-19, Liverpool in 18-19. Those teams played to win. No matter what the situation, no matter what the game, even when the title was wrapped up, these teams were playing to win. I think what Arsenal did, whilst it is an unbelievable achievement, that's why they're in this conversation in the first place. We're 30-odd years into the Premier League now, and we're picking from 4 or 5 teams. It was an exceptional season not to be beaten, but... as you said, there's something you have to do to not lose a game, and that is sometimes not play to win. Football's all about ultimately picking up the 3 points and beating the team in front of you.
So we're putting Arsenal's Invincibles bottom of this list, bottom of the 5, which means we need to rank. I mean, United, this is only the Premier League season for the 99, so they did win the treble, like Man City did last season, of course. But just for this Premier League season, I mean, it was a great Man United team, of course, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were brilliant. Chelsea were good as well, but he knows Chelsea, but they were the best defensive team
15
I think I've seen.
goals conceded.
That was just stupid. I would probably put United 4th, Chelsea 3rd in this category. Chelsea might even go higher, to be honest. They were really good. I don't know what you think, Oliver.
I have to be honest, I don't put any of the 3 of them near the best iterations of City and Liverpool. I'm going to be honest. Firstly, well... probably being a bit harsh on United here, and I am bitter. I'm just going to say it off the bat. I am a very horrible, bitter blue. But again, the reason I haven't chosen City's treble-winning team is the same as I'm not choosing United's treble-winning team. And I'll be honest, I was young. I don't remember that team week in, week out. You might be a little bit more qualified to talk about them than me. But again, the sheer dominance on a weekly basis of City and Liverpool. Arsenal drew a lot of games. Chelsea, defensively, that was their achievement. But you have to do it at both ends if you want to be, I think, in this conversation. As I said, United, you might be able to speak to them a little bit better than I can because I was young back then. But just at least in my memory, my good memory of Premier League from the early 2000s, I've never seen a team like I said, this iteration of City. The 17-18 iteration of City, the 19-20 iteration of Liverpool, they're playing a different sport, I think, from these teams.
So would you have Chelsea above Man United?
No, push comes to shove. I would have United above Chelsea because you can be an extremely solid defensive team without necessarily having what you need to do everything else. They did, obviously, they still won the league, and I almost like I've got to caveat this by saying United, Arsenal, Chelsea fans, none of this is meant to be as an insult. Before the pylon begins. But you know, we're basically ranking 5 exceptional teams, and yeah, if I have to, I'd put Chelsea above them, but that may be a bit of bias because I remember them a whole lot better than I do the treble winning.
So yours is Man City, Liverpool,
Chelsea, Arsenal, or United, Arsenal.
Okay. So. Steve, how are you feeling?
I think the Centurions has to go 1. I think I put Liverpool 2. I think if you rank the top 5 Premier League teams, or just of all time, I think it'd all be Liverpool and City, and I think it'd all be in the last 5 years. And I think the Liverpool team that didn't win the league in 18-19 is probably 3rd or 4th on this list, because they were just, 97 points, incredible. Lost 1 game, I think, all season, absolute joke. So what Invincibles, Liverpool did it with 1 game that I think they lost, and it was just phenomenal. So I would go City 1, City Centurions 1, Liverpool 19-20, dominant, 26 games unbeaten, league sewn up by, I think they beat City around Christmas time, and that was it. It was game over. People talk about the COVID stuff. Liverpool had won the league before COVID. People even knew what COVID was. Like they didn't have to play another game. They could have all self-isolated.
It's just a stick we beat you.
Yeah. They could have just stayed at home, lost every game, forfeited every game, and they just still won the league. They were that good. So they'd be second. If it was me, I would put Mourinho's Chelsea 3rd, just because they did it in a different way. They were unbelievable. Just so difficult, just relentless. They were relentless winners. Actually, it was just relentlessness, and it was nasty and it was horrible. But
how many goals did they concede at home that season?
Yeah, it was
tiny. I was going to throw another question in for you here. Do you think a team is more likely to get 100 points again, go the season unbeaten, or concede fewer than 15 goals? Like, which record is hardest to beat? Because from my point of view, I don't think a team's going to concede fewer than 15 goals.
I think the way football is now, I don't think anyone's ever going to do that again. I think it's more likely someone gets 100 points again than the 15 goals. That's why I've got them third. It was incredible. They used to, but it wasn't just like backs to the wall. They just kept the ball all the time. They just couldn't get the ball off them. And then when you did, they had Petr Cech and John Terry. It was a joke. So they would be third. Then I will go United. Then I will go Arsenal 5th. I think if I was ranking those 5 really good teams. But I don't even think I don't think that's the best Man United Premier League team.
No.
I think 07-08 is Man United's best team. I think
Tevez, Ronaldo,
joke. I think
Rooney.
So I'm quite comfortable. I'd say City, Liverpool, Chelsea, United, Arsenal will be my 5.
Excellent stuff. Right, we'll move on to another ranking, and this one's just a bit Man City focused, but Steve will get your opinion as well. Rank the competitions, FA Cup, Premier League and Champions League, in the order that City are most likely to win them this season.
Most likely to win.
So the one you're most confident at winning to the one you're least confident of winning.
Any other year, I would say Premier League in this situation, purely because City's bag has been about consistency, whereas we're not being consistent this season. So I think we're more likely to pick up a cup. I'd have to say FA Cup, purely just because the quality of the competition is less so. And you've got those one-off games where if we just produce our best on the day, then we will win, because on our day we are the best side. After that, probably in a similar theme, I'm going to say Champions League. Only domestic team where we seem to struggle in the Champions League left is Arsenal, and I would fancy us against them over 2 legs. And Europe, the European teams that are left, I just don't think they are what they were a few years ago, especially Real Madrid. Still top teams, but not quite where Premier League teams are at the moment, certainly where City are. And then lastly, Premier League, because we've got Liverpool above us, we've got Arsenal right behind us, and we just don't have... We've not shown yet the consistency required to go and win every single game that is left. So I say FA Cup, Champions League, Premier League.
Interesting. I'm interested you put FA Cup first there above Champions League, just because I think City are obviously harder to beat over 2 legs, 180 minutes.
Suppose you've got Newcastle, which at home, which you expect to win.
Yeah, Newcastle, because of their form, certainly this side of the new year, we should be getting through. And then there's only, what, 2 or 3? Is it 2 or 3?
2 after that, yeah.
2 after that, yeah.
And so many others, really, I think. I mean, it could be United get through, but we've just seen City wipe the floor with Man United. The FA Cup, Yeah, I'd probably agree City. I actually think Liverpool might be, if it was Liverpool, I'd say that might be the one we're least likely to win.
Also, if we do get you in the FA Cup, it's at Wembley, where we have beaten you before. Yeah, it's not at Anfield, so back it.
Absolutely, that makes sense. I think I'd probably agree with that from a City point of view, actually. I actually think they are going to win the Champions League again. The FA Cup, I think it's us or them.
Or Coventry is still in the FA Cup.
Apologies, Coventry as well. And then obviously the Premier League, it could be that. So I probably agree with you. I wouldn't. I would say I think City are most likely to win the Champions League. I don't see anyone in Europe who can stop them over two legs. I agree with what the point.
I'd be curious to see Bucky's odds on which one, where we are the shortest favourites for each one, because we are still the favourites for all three.
All three, yeah. I'd say Champions League. I think you said before, like the FA Cup, Newcastle could just beat Man City on a day. I think if you give them over 180 minutes, they can't. I can't see a single team, I think, who can beat City over two legs at the moment in Europe. It doesn't feel like the competition's as strong. I actually think the two best teams are the two English teams. And I would back City over two legs against any of them. So I think City are going to win the Champions League again. And then that's why I would go Champions League, FA Cup, League. Just because the league's so tight at the moment.
Be nice.
Back-to-back European Cups.
So I've actually just had a look at the odds on Betfred for the Champions League, Premier League and FA Cup. For the Champions League, Man City are 6-4. For the Premier League, they are 5-6. And for the FA Cup, they are 11-8. So the bookies actually think that Man City are most likely to win the Premier League. The opposite of what you said, Ollie.
Literally the opposite of what I said, yeah. Crazy. It doesn't follow my logic on that, but
it's history, isn't it? I think everyone, you can just bank on Manchester City, just run away with it. I think, I still think Champions League's favourite. I think City over two legs are going to be phenomenally difficult for anybody to beat. Someone could pick a point up against them in the league. I think if you hold City in 90 minutes, they're probably going to beat you in the next leg anyway. Or if it goes to extra time, they'll have the quality. So I actually think the Champions League. I think if it was me, I would say Champions League.
I think the two legs thing is a really interesting point. I think that's partly because when we do get beat, we don't get battered. I can't remember the last time we really took a beating, whereas when we win, we do have the capacity to batter teams. So when we're looking at an aggregate scoreline, if you're going to beat City and if you're going to beat City at home and City are going to beat you at the Etihad, chances are you are still not picking up the aggregate score. So I think that's, it's a good point. But that owes to defensive proficiency, and we're kind of circling back here to the fact that we've not been as proficient. But I'm inclined to agree. I'm not sure where those odds come from, but certainly I see one or two of the cup competitions is more likely than the Premier League.
I hope they win none.
Get good odds on that. Right back at you. I think obviously this weekend will have a huge impact on those odds as well. We're going to finish with one more ranking question. It's a very simple one, very quick one. It's not simple at all. I'm only joking. Jose Mourinho, Arsene Wenger, Sir Alex Ferguson, and two people called Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp. These are probably the five best managers we've seen in the Premier League. I'd like you to rank them, please. Steve, you look a little less confused, so do you want to start?
Pep, Fergie, Klopp, Mourinho, Wenger.
Bang.
Ferguson, Klopp, Guardiola, Mourinho, Wenger. I think Klopp's a better manager than Pep Guardiola in that. And I know that's mad because Pep's won loads of these things and stuff. I swapped the positions. Liverpool wouldn't have won the league once. And
you don't put Lewis Hamilton or Toyota Yaris.
Yeah, but I don't think Pep could have done what Jurgen's done at Anfield. I think Jurgen could do what Pep's done at City. I've put Ferguson top because he did like 4 or 5 different times. If Guardiola stays for another 5 years and changes the team again and it goes one more time, he's kind of been through one cycle of a team and now he's now onto a brilliant second one. I think if he goes on to a third one, then he probably takes that. He probably goes right to the top. But I will go Ferguson 1, Klopp, Pep, Mourinho, Wenger. That would be my 5.
I'll let you close the show, Ollie, by
how long have we got?
You've got a minute left to tell everyone why Pep is better than Fergie.
Why Pep's better than Fergie? First, one point on that Klopp thing. There's nothing to say that Klopp could have the consistency that Pep has. The reason I say it is that Liverpool, as you mentioned before, have down seasons. You have seasons where you're not up there, whereas our down seasons have been basically second and maybe a few more points behind than would like to be behind a phenomenal team. The consistency that Pep has drawn up. But on the Fergie matter, I've discussed this so many times. The only thing that separates Pep from Fergie now is time. That's it. Wins more trophies per season, more points per season, more goals per season. Every quantifiable and even unquantifiable stat we talk about, Pep has produced the greatest Premier League team of all side, maybe two of them, that perhaps sit above United's treble team, perhaps sit above United's 07-08 team. There isn't any measure left other than time in the game that actually, or raw number of trophies won, that puts Pep below Fergie. If Pep goes on to do as long as Fergie did in management, he'll surpass his trophy count by 20, 30 trophies, something crazy. So, yeah, that's all I've got to say on it. So I'm so going to get abused for this one. But again, similar. It's not meant as a disrespect to Fergie. It's like saying it's disrespectful to Ronaldo to say that Messi's better. I know we're not going to get into this one, but it's not as a disrespect. It's like you've got one who is at the very, very top and one who is just that little bit better.
Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to the Sportsman Untitled, and we'll be back next week for another episode.